Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we will be going over Switzerland's role during the Second World War. If you like today's video, please like and subscribe, and turn on notifications as I'll be posting more videos just like this one. And without further ado, let's get into it. When World War II started on September 1st, 1939, Switzerland was immediately able to mobilize, and it only took them 3 days to fully mobilize. The mobilization went more smoothly and caused less controversy than in 1914. By the 3rd of September, 430,000 combat troops were ready, but most of whom were sent home during the Phoney War. The Phoney War was an 8-month-long period on the outset of World War II. The United Kingdom and France declared war against Germany, but there was no Allied military land operations on the Western Front, and there was very little actual warfare occurring. At Switzerland's peak, 850,000 soldiers were mobilized. During the war, the German military command had invasion plans, Operation Tannenbaum being one of them. Operation Tannenbaum was a planned invasion of Switzerland and Liechtenstein by the Axis powers during the Second World War. Despite the plans, this never took place. Switzerland was able to remain an independent nation through a multitude of different ways. Some of these ways are economic concessions, military deterrence, and Axis forces were busier with other events during the Second World War. The National Movement of Switzerland, which was a pro-Nazi party that attempted to unify with the country of Nazi Germany, but this failed. The reason this most likely failed was because Switzerland had a strong national identity, and they had traditions of democracy and civil liberties that were loved. The Swiss press often criticized the Third Reich. Now this did piss off the Third Reich leadership. As a result, Berlin denounced Switzerland as a medieval remnant and its people renegated Germans. Now let's talk about the Swiss military strategy, because this is very important. The Swiss military strategy was changed from one of static defense at its border to a strategy of attrition and withdrawal to a strong, well-stockpiled position high in the Alps, which was known as the National Redoubt. The strategy was essentially one of deterrence. The idea behind it was to make invading cost too much and make the invasion not worth it for the enemy. If an invasion were to take place, the Swiss army would cede control to the economic heartland and the population centers, but they would retain control of crucial railing that passed in the National Redoubt. So you may be wondering, what is the National Redoubt? The Swiss National Redoubt is a defensive plan developed by the Swiss government beginning in the 1880s. During the Second World War, the plan was used to deal with a potential German invasion. In 1941, Franz Behry, the leading Nazi propagandist for Switzerland, sent a letter to Heinrich Himmler to discuss the Nazi coup for Switzerland. He had 1,800 men prepared for deployment in all German-speaking Swiss cantons. He also said he was ready for action at any time. Now, when it came to acts against national security, Switzerland was tough on this. Under the Swiss military law, capital punishment was for any form of treason. During the Second World War, 33 people were sentenced to death. 17 of those condemned were executed before the end of the war. They were all sentenced to death because they were spying for Nazi Germany. All of them that were executed were Swiss, and the ones that weren't killed, hundreds of others were also imprisoned for spying for Germany and committing acts against national security. In 1953, Johannes Pauli had a trial for his crimes committed at Beißen concentration camp. He was one of only 7 Nazi war criminals to be convicted by a Swiss court. At first, he denied any involvement in the war crimes, but later admitted to his crimes. He was involved in the execution of 2 prisoners. In 1953, he was found guilty of murder for executing a prisoner for looting and ordering the execution of 2 other prisoners without trial, and sentenced to 12 years in prison. But he was released in 1961 and died in 1969. During the Second World War, Switzerland and Germany did get into confrontations. The Reich violated Switzerland's airspace at least 197 times. This was during the Battle of France in 1940. As a result, the Swiss shot down 11 Luftwaffe aircraft, but they did lose 3 of their own aircraft. Nazi Germany's Führer, Adolf Hitler, was furious when he saw German equipment being used to shoot down German pilots. He said that they would respond to this in another manner. Skirmishes between German and Swiss troops took place on the northern border of Switzerland. But on June 20th, the Swiss Air Force was ordered to stop intercepting planes violating their airspace. As a result, Swiss fighters began to instead force intruding aircraft to land at Swiss airfields, but the Swiss still had their anti-aircraft guns hot and ready. But it wasn't just the Nazis that violated Switzerland's airspace. The Allies did too, and they did it 6,304 times, way more than Germany did. Damaged Allied bombers returning from Italy and Germany would violate Switzerland's airspace. They preferred internment by the Swiss than by the Germans and the Italians. They would put them in ski resorts that had been empty due to the lack of tourism to the country, and hold them there until all hostilities ended. At least 940 Americans attempted to escape to France. This was after Normandy landings in June. But Switzerland was not having it, and they intercepted 183 of them. 160 of these Americans were incarcerated at this Swiss prison camp, which was commanded by this guy, who was a pro-Nazi Swiss officer. The Americans were held there until November of 1944. Then, the US State Department protested against the Swiss government and eventually secured their releases. But poor little Switzerland could not catch a break. The country also suffered from Allied bombing. Yes, you heard that. Switzerland was bombed during the Second World War. Because the country was surrounded by Axis forces, it suffered a lot of accidental mistakes. Like on April 1st of 1944, it was mistaken for this German town. They were meant to hit this German town, but they ended up hitting this Switzerland town. In the end, 40 people were killed and 270 were injured. These two towns in Switzerland were also bombed. Other attacks happened in Switzerland too, but in the end, the US government paid Switzerland $4 million and an additional $14.4 million in 1944 to 1945 dollars. Now when it came to Jewish refugees, Switzerland wasn't really the best. At the beginning of the war, Switzerland had a Jewish population of 18,000 to 28,000. As the state being neutral, bordering Germany, Switzerland was relatively easy to reach for refugees. So if you are a refugee, it may seem like you hit the jackpot, seeing a neutral country sitting there. Surely they would let you in, and not let you be killed by the Nazis, right? But only a handful of people were able to make it to Switzerland. Many, and I mean many of whom, were denied access to the country. From the years of 1933 to 1944, asylum for refugees can only be granted for those who were under personal threat owing to their political activities only. Under this basis, it did not account for those who were under threat due to their religion, race, or ethnicity. Switzerland saw refugees as a burden. Between 10,000 and 24,000 Jewish civilian refugees were refused entry. These refugees were refused entry on claims of dwindling the supplies. This is just some of the history of Switzerland during the years of World War II. But that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to like and subscribe. It goes a long way. And hit the notifications if you want to see more videos just like this one. I hope you had a good day. God bless.